Went and saw Arrival, and this is an attempt to kind of be the anti-Independence Day, the anti-blockbuster CGI vomit type of story. And it's attempting to have all this sort of philosophical depth and, what's the philosophy of language. And there's a couple interesting questions that are posed that actually, if you take college classes on philosophy of language, I have, you will come across some of the questions that are raised in the film. So I don't want to say that it's a terrible movie, but it's also pretty boring. I'll give a little bit of a spoiler here. The appropriate title for this movie could have been called Salvation via Cthulhu, right? The Call of Cthulhu. This is Cthulhu's arrival. And the squid Billy gods from another planet end up saving man. This is another theme that we've seen many times through the implementation of synchronistic mysteries. Where have we seen this before? Oh, this is actually the plot of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You'll notice that in the film, there is a direct parallel between the toys and the objects that later appear in the film. So you'll see Roy's children playing with a train set, and then you'll see the train later that is supposed to deport the people out of the area where the aliens land. And that is a form of what's called simulacrum. This goes all the way back to Plato. I discussed this in my book, and how film uses this in a kind of esoteric and significant way. Now, that's exactly what we see in Arrival with the pictures that Amy Adams' character's daughter draws, right? They're supposed to predict the future, and the language is spoken of as eternal return, a form of Nietzschean symbology, right? Which Nietzsche's Thus Spake Zarathustra proposes this doctrine of eternal return, that history is cyclical and all events simply repeat. The reason that this relates to the Arrival is quite obvious. Arrival, there's a connection between language, the philosophy of language, and the reason that human beings are divided. This, of course, goes back to the biblical text in Genesis that deals with the Tower of Babel. And in that text, God describes the confusing of languages so that men do not try to erect a one-world government in opposition to divinity. Now, that's exactly what man attempts to do, and especially nowadays in the push for globalism. The EU even uses the Tower of Babel as its symbol, of course. But for the film Arrival, the whole point of the movie is that the aliens are here to try to tell us that if we can't work together, we deserve to be destroyed, right? And what does this mean? Well, this means that getting past any divisions or distinctions or borders or any kind of notion of nationality. And that's why all the other nations where the alien ship has landed or appeared, they're all at one point willing to go to war, either against one another or against the aliens or so forth, right? And we're told then that China is, of course, our savior, actually, in a twist of fate when Amy Adams learns that she has the Gnostic powers of predicting the future, seeing future past. And this relates to the recent Rolling Stone report, as you can see here. Is China taking over Hollywood? 70% of profits come from abroad. And it talks about the different billionaires that are vying to pretty much control all the 6 major studios. Now, that is relevant because you'll start to notice that in these films, the propaganda is not just esoteric or trying to teach Babel type New World Order messages, but also presenting rival countries like China as the heroes and the savior, which have a completely oligarchic, communistic government. I'm not trying to say the U.S. is any different. It has the same oligarchic structure, just under the facade of capitalism. Why am I saying all this? Well, because the whole point of the film was the reversal of Babel, right? The ability to overcome linguistic barriers in order to achieve the world government. Interestingly, the reviewer over at Quartz.com noticed this as well, and even describes the film as the haunting, beautiful ode to globalism. And so you'll see there that that is precisely the meaning of the coffee stain, ink blot, diarrhea, squid squirt that is supposed to tell you all these deep mystical messages. Oh, actually the message of the film is just globalism. Yes, getting past all distinctions, all differences and barriers for the supposed egalitarianism of the one world order of Babel, which is all nothing but a fraud. So Arrival is nothing but propaganda.